when I started writing poetry at first, and I'm looking at my authority figures through a critical lens. I'm like, I don't want to be like y'all. So why should I listen to you people? And I don't aspire to be you people, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of my poetry when I was 12, 14.
Welcome to another episode of Keepin It with Keys. Welcome. My name is Marquise. Marquisedavon, Keys, this American Negro, but don't ever call me Mark. If you're new here, that's the rule. If you're not, you already know what it is. Welcome back to the show. Keepin It is a podcast that aims to connect community, conversation all over a cup of coffee. Coffee shops and cafes, bookstores are some of my favorite places to have the conversation and just chill out. And this is my way of inviting you into that world. This show allows me to talk to my friends, creative peers, professionals, experts in their fields all over a cup of coffee or tea. Obviously today we're recording at night, so we have some tea. I got some black tea with me. What you got?
I got some green tea.
And some green tea.
With a little bit of honey, you know.
Just a little something. We out here. But this allows me to just be in that kind of space. And so really bringing you into the cafe space, bringing into the world that I particularly enjoy. It's my personal love. I'll be at some coffee shop in the morning, getting to know the staff, catching my usual, whatever the case may be. And that's really what I wanted to make this space be. So welcome to the podcast. Real quick, I do want to say thank you for those who have also been tuning into my other podcast, Heavy is the Crown, which is a Bel Air recap podcast with me and Skip from BK. Y'all have been interacting with us on Twitter. Y'all have been excited. People have been reaching out to me of just like, thank you. I got the conversation. I'm glad somebody else is talking about it. And that is so dope for a podcaster to hear. Also, thank you to the King Status podcast for having me on as well. They had me on to talk around my experience as a Black male educator. And then also I had an opportunity to talk on Here's Why with Kevin Ortega. We went through a bunch of hot topics from Taylor Swift and AI and the importance of the ethics behind that, talking around the Oscar snubs, all of that. So I'll make sure to leave that all in the description box below. By the time you see this too, I would have had an opportunity to speak on Eat Your Heart Out as well. And so super excited to see how these conversations are turning out. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. Other than that, in order to support this here podcast, you can do it in a monetary way or a non-monetary way. The monetary way is going to my Patreon. That is patreon.com/marquisedavon. That's MARQUISE. You can subscribe for at least $2 a month, which is $24 a year. If you want to be a little nice with your money and support me like you support Netflix, you can up it to $5 to $10 to $15 as well a month. This allows me to start monetizing the podcast, pay for editors, pay for camera operators, and really be able to pay the people who are helping me make this dream come true in terms of podcasting. There on Patreon, you're going to get exclusive content. That is where this vlog will be living. So you get to see a little bit of unfiltered Marquise. Get to see me as I build in my apartment, start living alone. So it's a little space where I'll put that behind it paywall because my business ain't out there for free. The fuck? What Kendrick say? This ain't free. This life ain't free. So that way you're able to tune in that way just to get some more supplementary content if you love what I'm doing here. And then also, I understand we are in some economic, anxious ass times. And so if you can't support me monetarily, thank you for just sharing a post, leaving a rate and review, no matter where you're listening to the podcast or watching the podcast. I think word of mouth is still the most powerful form of marketing. So tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. And that is the best way to ensure that we have something building here. This helps me show up on other podcast platforms, whether it's a playlist or just showing up on like, hey, we've been listening to your show, or many people have been responding. These are really good ways to help me. So if you need help knowing how to find, how to rate and review as well, feel free to just shoot me a DM. I have no problem teaching folks how to do that either. So these are just the different ways. Make sure you engage with me. Use the hashtag Keepin It a Bean. That is KEEPIN. Do not put keeping, keep in. Two different kind of phrases, please. It a bean or KIAB. Use the hashtag on Twitter to be able to follow along on the conversation. Please just at me if you're interested in anything that you see or anything that you hear or you want to challenge me. I'm in a space of learning, so I hope you can also be in a space of learning with me as well. All right. that is enough of me paying the bills. Obviously, if you've been here long enough, you see that I already have a special guest. This is Julian, aka the Pastor Jewel. Good brother. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. It's a blessed day.
Yes, sir.
Every day is a blessed day. It's really good to be here.
Facts.
This is a wonderful podcast, and I'm glad to make my debut. It's my first podcast.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, man.
Man, y'all saw Julian on the last episode, and you didn't see him. You saw his hand.
It's the palm of my hand.
You saw the palm of his hand. Julian came on, this is probably 2 weeks ago now?
It's 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So by the time this is out, it's probably 3 weeks ago at that point.
Yeah.
And has been, I'm just thankful. I know I said it on the other episode, but like, thank you for like hopping on and just reaching out and just like wanting to build together.
Yeah.
That stuff, it just means a lot. Cause I keep saying, I'm just like, I'm not in space to be able to like pay right away. But like, if there's anything that I can do to like support or throw a oop your way or know there's a paid opportunity coming, like that's what I can do for right now. But man, for somebody to just say, yo, I believe in what you do, I appreciate what you do, and say, how can I help? That really means a lot. And so I'm just in a space of being like super appreciative and thankful for you.
Thank you for just putting out quality content. Honestly, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't a quality production.
Mm-hmm.
I would never volunteer my services. I would never volunteer my face or nothing about. I don't really associate it with a low quality production, a toxic production, a production that just looks bad. From top to bottom, bad energy.
Yeah.
You know, you have good energy. Your podcast has good energy. Your messages are good. So it's all good, man.
Man, yo, I appreciate you,
it's
bro.
It's all good, bro.
Truly.
Sure.
Yeah, nah. So I want people to be able to get to know you, because I didn't even realize how long we've been following each other's work.
Yeah.
And so it was real dope just to, one, kind of get a reintroduction to who you are, for me anyways, and seeing you through Twitter. And then I was like, let me hop over to Instagram, because I realized I follow a lot of people on Twitter. It doesn't transfer over sometimes. Right. But I got to see a lot more of your work, and bro, a voice. Nah, truly. Like, and for me, I always appreciate spoken word. I appreciate how people can craft their words together, because it's so important. And one of the ones that stood out to me when I was like watching and just listening to what you have said, you have like this consistent through line of like the loss of innocence, particularly like for Black kids and youth. And the one that gets me every time is the one where you're talking at the playground. And that one, I'm appreciative of it, because it's a sad reality. But it's one where, like, especially working in education, my biggest fear is like a child having to grow up too fast or not being able to make it to 18 or 21. And so like I hear you talk, and there's a vulnerability when you talk, there's a reflection when you talk. And it's funny, I said you use the hashtag but I'm not a preacher, or I'm not a preacher.
Right.
And that shit takes me out every time, because I'm just like, you're not, it doesn't feel preachy when you're talking. It feels like you're talking from a real experience.
Right.
You're talking from something that people can connect to. And so for me, as I listened to you, I felt like I was connecting with you in a different way, and just getting a little bit of insight to who you were and what you're about. So can you just take us back to like, what did poetry, or even like writing just in general, like when did that start?
Yeah, man. So writing really starts early. It starts early once you start formulating your imagination into ideas and tangible results. So for me, I was 7 years old when I first started officially writing, and I know a lot of Black artists who record music or perform. We all simply have in common. We start young, you know, between like 7, 8 years old, and that's like the golden spot. And I guess that's when our minds develop some type of way where it's like, now we see the world in a way, and now we want to create our own world. Yeah. So for me, that's what it was. I was 7 years old, and words were my way of creating. I was creating through other ways too. You know, I had a really bright imagination. I played with action figures when I was a kid, so I used to really bring the action figures to life. You know, so that was just an attestament to who I was as a visionary, you know. But really, the words, man, it's unlimited power when it comes to words. You could do whatever you want. You can twist a word into another word. You can, you know, rearrange the syllables. You can create imagery into people's minds. You can literally implant an image into someone's mind just by speaking a word and describing an image. And for me, that was important. It was fun, you know, when I first started growing up and just writing. And for me, writing wasn't even like a tangible thing. I wasn't writing. I was just thinking of words. And to me, that was writing. That was my first form of writing. It was just all in my mind. I didn't really start putting pen to page until I was 12.
That's 5 years later.
So like at 7 years old, my form of writing was literally, I was freestyle. Kanye West was my inspiration early on. So I used to practice his cadence. I'm 7 years old. Practicing the cadence of Kanye West. You feel me? And that might have been a little later than that because Kanye didn't come out till like 04. So I might have been like closer to like 9, 10. But you know, I was mimicking cadences because as a kid, that's really, you know, I look at who I want to be like, and then I imitate until I create my own style. And for me, that was how I wrote. I wasn't good at, you know, I could barely draw on the lines at that age. You feel me? So let alone write on the papers. You feel me? So 5 years later, at 12 years old is when I really started writing. And I don't know if you had one, but I had an iPad. Not an iPad. I had an iPod when I was 12. It was the first touchscreen one though. I never had the original iPod. I never had the music one.
Oh, so that's the one I had. I had the music one.
I had the touchscreen one when I was 12 years old.
Was fancy.
So I wasn't traditionally writing when I was a kid. Like my first writing was literally thumb to screen.
Typing.
I was typing.
Oh, snap.
So my first poem was on. I still have it too. It was on an iPod.
That is fire.
My very first poem was on a touchscreen iPod at 12 years old. And at 12 years old, I'm talking about Egypt and slave ships at 12 years old.
Wow.
And I'm talking about how I feel about how white people and the power system and how I felt about all of that as a black boy. You know what I'm saying? I was really obsessed with power dynamics at 12 years old, way more than I am now. And it's crazy because I guess at 12, that's like a rebellious age.
Oh, and it is.
So for me,
and it is.
So my mind was just on, why the hell, why am I stuck in this house? Why do I have to listen to my parents? Why do I have to listen to my teachers? Why am I listening to you people? And then a lot of the authority figures in my life were people that I didn't want to emulate because they had a lot of, you know, character flaws that I just didn't like, or they just didn't enjoy their lives. So at 12, I was writing about all that. It went from that to, why am I writing about slave ships at 12? I'm like, I want to go back. I want to go back to when freedom was not even a concept. It was just it was a given. You feel me? So that's at 12 years old. And then from there, I started to record music. I went from writing poetry on my iPod to recording music on my phone. I had an Android. That was my first phone, yo.
Oh yeah.
I don't even remember which Android it was. It was just called Android back then. Bro, they didn't even have names.
They didn't have names. It was just Android.
So I had an Android. It was a touchscreen John. I used to record voice notes on that John. And I would post them Jones to SoundCloud. This was high school at this point. This was like 15 years old. And I used to share with my friends. My friends would encourage me. Like, yo, Jules, that's hot, da-da-da.
Yo, that's...
And and then my journey just progressed throughout high school. I started learning different techniques and shit. It wasn't really until I got made fun of. Matter of fact, that brings me back that Cat Williams interview. He was like, a lot of comedians don't get booed enough. I got booed for the first time in 10th grade. I gave somebody my iPod. It was like, read this. They read it. They was like, nah, Jules, this ain't it. I was like, for real. I was like, fuck out of here, boy. We got into a little argument back and forth, but then at the end of the day, when I went home, I just rewrote all that shit. And I was like, you might be right. That nigga might have a point. I reread it. I was like, this shit kind of ass. Right? I'm like, you kind of right, bro. I'm like, this shit kind of corny. Because it was like it wasn't sophisticated. He was right. Like, he didn't really articulate it as constructive criticism.
Yeah.
That nigga said, nah, this ain't it, Jules.
What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah, like, he ain't say, I mean, no criticism. He wasn't like, yeah, you could do that. Nah. He was like, nah, straight up, that shit ass, nigga, don't ever write again. I was like, all right, bet, cool, whatever.
He said, not never write again. That was crazy.
Yo, it's funny. I met this, I met him, like, maybe like a few years ago. I met up with him again. He didn't recognize me. I'm like, yo, remember me, nigga? He was like, nah, nigga. He was like, let me remind you real quick. Yeah. but yeah, bro, that was the first time I got booed. And ever since I got booed, now I look at my art completely differently.
Yeah.
Yo. Now it's all, I look at that shit top to bottom. I'm like, yo, what if I use this word instead of that one?
Yeah.
I'm studying motherfuckers now. You know what I'm saying? That put me in an overdrive. That nigga never booed me again. He went from booing me, actually, this is senior year. I hear this nigga, I did a showcase in senior year of high school, and I hear him over with his friends. I'm like, yo, that nigga was really MCing. I was like, sometimes it really feel, yeah. So sometimes it feel good to make your haters, turn your haters into appreciators, man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, my journey from writing is like, it's a lot, man, but yeah, them early years really shaped me, man.
No, and I appreciate that because that's what I was gonna ask. Like, as you were talking around it, like, it feels like you had a group of people, like, especially as you start something new. Because I remember starting like new stuff. That first couple years of me playing that cello, it was terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, Marquise, I don't know if you can play. All right, relax, right? But something I appreciate, like I'm hearing you talk around, is one, you had a affirming circle around you though too, yeah, for sure. When you were first starting, because that's something scary. I know probably at 10, 11, 12, like, to share something like that is super vulnerable, right? Yeah. And so, like, the fact that you had like a group of people or person, like, what was that like to have that kind of level of affirmation? And did that level of affirmation that came from your circle, did that help when he said, nah, that shit's whack?
It's funny, man. A lot of my battles, man, I took to the chin, like, by myself, because I get embarrassed easily, especially at that age. So a lot of my L's people don't even know about. So, but my friend group was always affirming, man. They were always affirming. And for me, that was everything, because I wasn't sure. They were my first critique, you feel me? They were my first line of critique. They were the first ones to say yay or nay. And I was excited to share my shit with them, because they was the homies. They was the homies, and they was my first official fans. But for my family, I ain't even tell my mom I was rapping, right? Because I know, like, I don't like rejection. I don't like being embarrassed. I don't like taking L's. I don't like none of that shit. So for me to have people where I'm like, you know what? If they say it's corny, if they say fuck this shit, I'm not going to take it personal, because they my homies, and that's just how we communicate, whatever. They never said fuck that shit. They always said, yo, this is hot. Just keep going. Boom, boom, boom. So when it came to even the corny shit that the boy was talking about, he was like, yeah, this shit ass. My homies, I never shared that with them because of that. I'm like, all right, I'm going to write something better. And I came back with some more heat. And then next thing you know, my homies now, they want to record with me.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like now I got niggas recording music with me. And just growing with me, and kind of now it's like a synergistic kind of relationship where now I go from like being an entertainer to now it's a team effort and shit. Man, having a team behind you, even if it's not like no titles behind it, having a team is like everything, man. And I think I took it for granted when I was younger. I didn't really know what I had. I didn't really know people had it. Had nothing, like no support system and shit. Like, I had one, and I kind of was just like, almost like, you my homie, you supposed to support type shit. But, looking back, like, now that you asked me that question, I'm actually really grateful. I don't know where I would be without that support system, honestly. Yeah. The 5-6 friends I had in school, honestly, because it was hard as shit to make friends in high school, dog. Like, it's hard as shit making friends. Like, everybody want to be a bully in high school, man. It's hard making friends in high school, dog. Everybody want to be the cool kid. So I had my little niche group, man. And yeah, bro. Yeah.
Nah, for real. I'm sitting here and just like reflecting on it, because it's dope. The fact that, like, one, especially like as a black boy, having to like navigate that.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I want to be vulnerable. I want to utilize my words. And for that to be the avenue you took, I remember when I first told my mom, I was like, yo, I don't want to play basketball anymore. I want to do theater. That shit was scary because everybody at that point, they knew I was like the smart kid. I was super compliant. I enjoyed school.
Yeah.
But I started playing basketball because that was the way to bond with my mom. But I realized I was doing that for her. And so for me, I was nervous because it took me in 8th grade to just first find my love of dance. And was just like, okay, so I started with the cello. I played that for 9.5 years. Middle school, I found dance and theater. Found out that I really enjoy that. Could not sing to save my life, I'm gonna be honest. I learned how to match pitch at best. Bruh. Went from there. But it was something that I had to learn critique very early because I had to like learn to be in a culture of feedback more and more. And so to have people who love you and want to see the best for you, but also have to hear like, here's how you can be better. That shaped me a lot differently as well because it made me have to work towards something. But it was something that there weren't a lot of Black boys partaking in that kind of space. Like most kids in the music department, they were white kids in the theater department, white. And like I'm from Reading, so like we had a little bit more of like a multiracial kind of component to it, but I didn't see a lot of me in there. And so what was it like to put yourself out there for the first time? I think is really where I'm trying to.
Bro, you know what? I'm gonna address a point you just made, man, because you said there wasn't a lot of me in there. I'm a poet now. You know what I'm saying? I get paid to do it. I love to do it. It's fun. Yo, when I first started doing poetry, and this is why I was doing music first, because all I saw was niggas doing music. Yeah. Niggas was rapping, so I'm rapping. Fuck it. What are we
That's
talking
where I
about?
see myself.
Yeah, I'm going to be a rapper, so I was rapping. And it wasn't until, I never told her this, but it wasn't until I saw Kai Davis perform for the first time in my life, right? This was the first time I had ever seen spoken word performed, period. I didn't even know there was a such thing as spoken word until I saw Kai Davis. Shout out to Kai Davis. She went to Central High School, class of 271. At an assembly, she performed a poem. She said, she got up on the stage. She must have been 16, bro. Like, she must have been 16. She got up on the stage and she looked at the crowd. She waited for a second, waited for everybody to shut the fuck up. She stepped up to the mic and she said, fuck I look like. And that's how she started the poem, bro. Bro, that's how she started the poem, bro. Whole time I'm like, mind you, I hated poetry in school. Yeah. I couldn't stand it.
That's fascinating.
When you say you couldn't see yourself, bro, I couldn't see myself in poetry. In English class, I hated English. Like, why are we reading about what's the albatross? I don't give a fuck about a fucking albatross
at all.
I don't relate to this shit. Yep. Right?
Not at all.
I don't care. Edgar Allan Poe, he cool. You mean?
Yeah, no, I understand because that was 10th grade and cool. they had us doing like poetry out loud and stuff. And
I'm like, all right.
Said, I don't want to do this.
Shakespeare, all right. Yeah. I mean, I've heard better. Lil Wayne,
talk about it.
Lil Wayne is, I don't know. Lil Wayne might have him. So when it come to poetry, that was the first time I seen a Black person do poetry in high school. Yeah. And it was a Black woman, right? A Black woman. Well, at that time, she was a Black girl. But the first time I saw somebody do poetry, perform it, was a Black person. So I'm like, oh, this is our shit. Yeah. Okay. Oh, all right. Yeah. So ever since then, I started writing my poetry to perform it. Before I was just writing it to read it. Yeah. Writing it to write it. Now I'm writing it to perform. And now I'm a performer. And shout out to Kai. Like, I wouldn't be a spoken word poet if it wasn't for Kai Davis. Shout out to Kai Davis. Shout out to PYPM, the whole Philadelphia youth poetry movement. Y'all influence who I am today. So, shout out to that whole movement. But
that's fire.
Yeah, bro. That I without that experience, without that performance, I would not be doing poetry. Maybe I would, but not as soon as I did. Mm-hmm. It might have came later, or I might not have had the same view of it. Poetry was always like it always had like a a feminine undertone to it.
Yeah.
And I like aggressive art forms. I like art forms where I could be aggressive and I could really, dig into all my emotions and really be like dramatic. You feel me?
Because it was like as soon as you said "fuck," I look like off rip. I'm just like, oh, that
bro.
That gave you the energy you needed. Yeah.
That's how you start a poem,
bro.
I ain't never read a poem with no curse words in it.
Yeah.
So for your first word to be "fuck,"
yeah.
Come on, I'm in there. Let's go.
Let's get. Let it cook.
And then when I found out you ain't have to rhyme, it's up.
You're still
I'm like, it's up now. You don't gotta rhyme. I can say whatever I want. Remember when I told you early on, your imagination is the limit to your creativity and how you really form your world. And rap, the confines of rap was you had to rhyme.
Yeah.
You had to be on beat.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really be as creative as a free form poet.
Yeah.
So I'm like, spoken word don't gotta rhyme. It ain't no beat.
You're telling a story.
Cool. I could do whatever I want. I could say what I want. I could twist the words how I want. The syllables ain't necessarily gotta fit in a 16-point bar. I could say anything. So from there it was up, man. I focused on poetry for a while. Did it in college. Had my first feature was Pecola Breed Love. Shout out to Pecola. Shout out to KP. Long live KP. KP is the Andre 3000 of this poetry shit.
Come on now.
And if nobody ever told you, I'm telling you, you the Andre 3 stacks of this poetry shit. Shout out to KP, man. Shout out to Pecola. Pecola was one of the greatest open mic experiences, really, because it was really just a vibe, bro. And that was my first open mic I went to and the first open mic I got featured at. So, man, it's a lot of stepping stones to my journey, man. Kai Davis was the catalyst, KP, he fostered all the skills, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man.
And I love that because it's always interesting to me of just like, where do people start to find and build community? And oftentimes, like, especially for the Black kids who don't like the stuff that is always shown to us, right? Yeah. It's difficult to find community because we're always being told, but that's not what you should be interested in. That's not what you should be doing. Yeah. And that's oftentimes just from the outside world, the images we see. Yeah. And so we don't always have like a positive self-identity in spaces that don't feel familiar to us. And for me, I was just like, I don't see myself necessarily. Like I see like Denzel Washington. I see them on TV.
It ain't in front of you though.
No, I don't see them on stage. Right? And so I'm sitting there, I'm just like, that's the closest thing. TV is close, but it feels distant. Like I'm like, oh, that's a different world. But to see somebody on stage, and then for me to be on stage, and then also be able to bring my friends in on that stage, and all of us just being like, should we all do this together? Right? We all were able to start building that community. And so really being able to have like a positive community that affirms your identity, affirms that you should be there, is what I'm hearing you talk about a lot. And that's something I know I look at my day job and I'm just like, I want to create a positive STEM identity for my kids because they're not going to think that they can become like a STEM major or get a STEM career because there's not a lot of Black people in that space. There weren't many Black male teachers, right? And so because of that not being there, that idea of just like, oh, there's possibility out here for me didn't exist. And so it's dope hearing you talk because now I'm hearing how you found yourself in this spoken word community, in this poetry community, and was just like, oh, I do belong here. And so like, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, you're building such a cool identity and a story that I'm just like, anybody can relate to, but it's scary when you feel like it's not there or you stumble upon it or have to actively seek it out when that space doesn't feel readily available. Yeah.
Luckily, I stumbled upon it by accident. I wasn't looking for it. Because I didn't even know poetry was a likable thing, bro. I tell you I hated poetry, and to an extent, I dislike most poetry. Let me put that out there. That's not my hot take, but I dislike most poetry, man. It's a very particular style of poetry that I truly, truly enjoy. Probably a couple particular styles I really enjoy. And shout out to the people that's just excelling in it. Excelling in poetry, just doing just excellence, man. But yeah, I wasn't looking for it, man. And I'm really glad I found it. Sometimes it's really accidental. Sometimes all of it is just like right timing, right place, right time. And I'm kind of glad though that it happened how it happened, because I discovered poetry in my rebellious phase.
Yeah.
So when I had naysayers, if I had naysayers, the people that were telling me, "Oh, you should be doing this, not that," right? It was automatic pushback.
Yeah.
You feel me? And I was able to develop my poetry through that pushback.
Yeah.
You feel me? So now my poetry is often like combating ideas. I often like frame myself in the mode of the bad guy. Like my subject matter is like, oh, I'm the bad guy in my poems, because it's often times where I have been the bad guy in my life, and to other people, I might have been their villain. I might have been their antagonist. So I really think of all of these things and I put it into my poetry, because it's a lot of poetry where, either you the victim or it's a happy ending or something along those lines that makes you more virtuous, that makes you look virtuous. Virtuous poems are fine. They're great as long as they're honest. It's hard for me to write virtuous poetry in a way that I enjoy. You feel me? So often my poetry comes from the times where I have been the least virtuous I've ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no, and you led me right into you actually led me into my next question. Yeah. 'Cause one, thank you for taking on that space too. 'Cause I think that is, when I was listening to you and watching your stuff and refamiliarizing myself with your work, I'm like, thank you for telling this perspective. Because oftentimes, especially in like the space of social media right now, we want to project the best of self, the best of who I am. I don't want to be honest, because vulnerability to a bunch of strangers is scary, frankly, right? However, there is a space where you're telling this story that is honest, that is complex. It's why I love the anti-hero, because I'm just like, there's a reason that they became this way and they exist the way that they do.
Right.
And you get to humanize the people that we would normally say, objectively, you're the villain. But how did that villain happen? What does redemption potentially start to look like? What is an observation of these things that I've done or experienced? And I think you do that so well. And as you're talking, you're expressing like the community that brought you in, the community that you were able to be cultivated in, to stumble upon, right? But as you think around all these external things, when did you hone in? And you mentioned it already. You talked around like rebellious and Black power and like and questioning the world, right? When did you hone in on your voice and understand what that needed to sound like for you? Or refine it at least.
Yeah, man, I had to be bad at it first, man. A lot of the way that I kind of absorb and process life is through the lens of who I don't want to be like and who I don't want to be.
I relate to that heavy.
So when I tell you that when I started writing poetry at first, and I'm looking at my authority figures through a critical lens, I'm like, I don't want to be like y'all. So why should I listen to you people? And I don't aspire to be you people, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of my poetry when I was 12, 14 was revolved around the power structures and why are we listening to these guys, right? So for me, a lot of the way I critique myself was based on who I wanted to be like as a poet. So I would go to open mics. I would critique different styles of poetry. I would critique poets, cadences, body language, and I would say I don't want to be that poet.
Yeah,
and I'd be
it's not who I want to be.
And somebody else would come on, and I'd be like, I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I want to be that guy. One guy who stood out to me. Shout out to Victor. I don't know his last name. I only ever known him as Victor. But he's a Muslim poet, man. I love his cadence, yo. His cadence and how he brings you in have always been beautiful. So his articulation, I took notes. I said, yo, I want to be like that nigga. So, early on, I would try to design my poetry around intricate matters. You feel me? Intricate matters personal to me, right? All because of, me watching him in high school, right? All his poems was personal. I said, all right, I'm not going to be general. I'm going to be personal because that's what I like to see when I'm in the audience. I like to see the personal shit.
Yeah.
So I would just practice in front of the mirror all the time, but I had to be bad at it first.
Yeah.
The first step to being good at anything, especially a performance art, is being fucking terrible at the shit. I was terrible. Only way I knew I was terrible, though, like performing in the mirror and judging myself was cool. I had to get on stage and people had to let me know I was terrible. That was step one to becoming better. I had to put myself out there. So slam poetry is a performance art where poets put their art out on the table to be judged by a panel of other poets or audience members. My first introduction to performance poetry was slam poetry. And I love slam poetry and I hate slam poetry. There can be it is a love hate because art can't really be judged, right?
Yeah.
It's subjective.
Yeah.
There's no final judgment. It can be judged. Everybody judges it. There's no final judgment. There's no right, wrong, right? So that's the hate. But then the love is when you're judged by people who can give critical what's the word?
Feedback.
Critical feedback or constructive criticism.
Yeah.
As somebody coming up and really, learning how to become better at it, that can be valuable. But also, I was a competitor, man. I like to compete. So getting on stage and competing and winning a couple times, it boosted my confidence. Losing a couple times just motivated me, man. So losing, winning, all of these things just built me up as a poet, yo. I'm a fan of battle rap, so
yeah,
slam poetry reminds me of battle rap. So I love the culture still. Shout out to the competitors, man. But I still understand a lot of poets got out of that shit because at the end of the day, you could go far with it, but sometimes niggas just want to write, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes niggas just want to be and let their poem be and let it sit on ears and let it. You never know who your poem really gonna touch.
Yeah.
When the lights turn off. And everybody goes home and you're asleep and everybody's asleep, there might be that one person who's up at night just thinking and reflecting on your poetry. And there's no score, there's no panel, there's no judge who can rank that feeling, that influence, that impact that it has in one individual's life or many, so. But yeah, first step to really developing was getting on that panel, man. Getting in front of them lights, getting on the chopping block, letting people say, yo, this is good, this is bad, yay, nay, 1, 10, whatever.
Yeah. So. Man, there's so much like grasp in everything that you said. And I'm gonna just break it down because there's 3 important things I think people should definitely be taking away around criticism, the way we are consuming art, and especially art in competition. I think there's like a fun tension there. Yeah. And then also your impact that you keep with people too. Like those are 3 things that I'm hearing. And so my first question as I'm listening you talk is like, what was a pivotal piece of feedback that you were just like, thank you? It might have been hard. Now we some Virgo ass niggas over here.
Bruh, I think about every fucking thing. I'm thinking while I'm thinking about my thoughts. Like it's really crazy. So like I said, man, there was a poetry slam I went to, the Pigeon Poetry Slam. They're not doing slams anymore. They're still doing events. They're doing the latest show now. Shout out to the Pigeon. I was in their poetry slam. I think it might have been 2019, right before the pandemic. Shut everything down. So it was like their last poetry slam before the pandemic. And I was up against one of the better poets in Philly. He might be top 5. But I was up against him in the final round. It was me and him. I had fought. I fought to get to that point. I had to do a haiku. Oh, shit. I never had to do a haiku before.
Yeah.
You feel me? I had to do a haiku. I had to do one of my best. It's 3 rounds. If you don't know, it's 3 rounds in the Pigeon Slam, right? There's an elimination round where they pick the final 8 or final 10, right? The elimination round is a round of haikus. Everybody has to do a haiku. And you have to go up, do your haiku, get off the stage. So that was the round number 1. Round number 2, now everybody's competing. Now you got to figure out if you want to do your best poem or your second best poem.
Yeah.
So I rolled the dice. I did the one I thought was going to win, and luckily I made it to the final round. And his name is Dave G. I don't know if he calls himself David, but it's Dave G. I was up against him. Now, the final round, they let you flip a coin. And whoever calls the coin gets to choose who goes first, right? So me being me and me being hype as shit. Of course I said, yeah, nigga, I'm going first, right? So I do my poem. Everybody's like, oh yeah, dog. The crowd go crazy. And then I step off. And mind you, this is my first time meeting Bull.
Yeah.
I ain't know who he was. I ain't know
You
who
gave
was.
him the grand finale.
I ain't know until I knew. I step off. Mind you, my poetry, when I perform, bro, I'm animated. I'm like I love battle rap. I'm all of that, right? He step up to the mic. He's talking to the crowd just like this. Just how I'm talking to you right now. And the whole poem is in this cadence. And in my mind, I'm like, why the fuck didn't I think it? Because it was so intimate. And he had a story with it, man. The story was beautiful. It was a story, I don't want to butcher it, but it was a story about one of his family members who he cared deeply about. So there was no need for him to be all animated and hyping. You know, it was a cadence perfect for the poem, and that was beautiful, man. So he gets off the stage, and after we both go, then the judges had to decide who wins, right? So, I'm you know, they bring us, so they got to be dramatic too. They dramatic. They brought us both up. They put us side by side, drum roll. I'm sitting there hyping shit. I'm like, yo, it's my first pigeon poetry slam. I'm about to win. Let's go. Yeah. Come on. I ain't really care, bro. I was just happy to be there. But, you know, I'm still hyping shit. Drum roll. Dave G wins. I'm like, yeah. So we shake hands, dap it up. He compliment my joint. I compliment his joint. I'm just happy. I'm like second place in the pigeon poetry slam. Yeah. It's my first poetry slam in Philly. Yeah, I'm happy, man. Yeah. So the biggest piece of advice, though, comes after everybody leaves, man. Everybody's out. Now it's just me, Dave, Watt, and Kai Davis. And Dave pulled me to the side. He's like, yo, you know why you lost, right? I was like, nah, what you mean? He was like, because you went first.
Hey, yo.
I said, where? I said, for real? Damn. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, everybody know. He said, every slam poet know not to go first. I was like, nigga, this is news to me.
Hey, nobody gonna tell me.
Yeah, you wasn't gonna tell me before that? All right, cool. So I'm like, all right. So that was my introduction to like the way like psychology works too. Like you gotta be kind of a little psychological when it comes to competing, bro. Because really what it is that when you go first, it don't matter how good your poem is, the second poem always gonna seem like the better poem, the poem that come next, because that's what's fresh on their mind. Yeah. Especially when the judgment doesn't come until both poems are done. Right. Both poems could be the best poems in the world. The poem that's gonna win, basically, this is what he was saying.
Recency bias.
Recency bias, exactly. So that was my biggest form of advice, just because of how it came, who it came from, the timing, everything was just like, and it was so simple. It was like, why the hell didn't I think of that? It's obvious, right? Yeah. I wasn't thinking. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, nah, they just gonna choose what they like more, right? Nah, you can really. It's a little bit of manipulation involved in this shit.
That's crazy.
And that's really like a lot of poetry slams is like a lot of the technique to win a poetry slam is to manipulate the audience. If you didn't know, you have to manipulate the judges. I'm letting you know now, and that's why a lot of poets don't like poetry slams, because it's not authentic. Like a lot of poetry slams ain't authentic. Because there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of like tricks and da-da-da. And if you know people, then you can kind of get one up. But, you know, when it's great, it's great, man. But that was the first time I had really realized like, oh, okay. You know, sometimes it's not what you say. Sometimes it's the timing of when you say it. Yeah. And Dave G uses silence really well. Yeah. Pauses. Bruh. Yeah. And I didn't even know a pause could be a lyric. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like a pause you could use space as a tool. And that's something that I learned, that I picked up on. So that was incredible, man. So shout out to Dave G. Shout out to the Pigeon Poetry Slam. whole different level of production over there, man. Y'all,
Yeah.
y'all do great. Y'all fostered a lot of people too, a lot of poets, man. Shout out to that. Yeah.
That is fire. What I'm appreciative is, one, like your ability to tell stories off rip. Like that to me is like so important, and like for that to be such a simple piece of advice that you were given was powerful. But the other piece that I keep hearing you talk around is like there's a tension of creativity and competition, and when you integrate these worlds together. So was there ever a point in time where, as you were going through the slam poetry stuff, where you were just like, I don't care for the politics of this anymore because I want my work to impact people more? Is there ever a time you were taken out of it?
Yeah, man. After a while, you start to question, or at least I start to question why I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose? You know, as my purpose changes.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, like, my purpose can change like that, man.
Yeah.
Depends on the room I'm in sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the mental space I was in wasn't the same as when I first started poetry.
Yeah.
I told you when I first started, it was in a rebellious phase that I started my poetry. I'm not rebelling necessarily anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I might have rebelled, and now I'm feeling like I'm in a place of peace where I just want to be at peace with what I have, be grateful. So for me, my poetry wasn't it wasn't coming from that space. I didn't feel competitive. I didn't feel like competing anymore. I didn't feel like being judged. I didn't feel like my poems were better than my peers' poems.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just wanted to appreciate the poem for what it was. It was times where I would just go to an open mic and just sit there.
Yeah.
And just listen.
Just to be an audience member.
Just to be appreciative. Not, you know what I'm saying? Just to be an audience member and appreciate the actual work that's being done.
Mm-hmm.
And that phase and that moment really brought me out of wanting to always kind of perfect. And I think a few poets and a few artists really can relate to that, where it's just like you just want to do it when you want to do it.
Facts.
You want to do it when you feel like it, and not because you're trying to monetize it, not because you're trying to get some type of validation from it. Sometimes I just want to wake up and not do another poem for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then wake up on that 10th year and do the best shit I ever did in 10 years. Sometimes I just want to wait.
Yeah.
And I can really relate to like artists like, you know, Andre 3000, where it's like, I don't want to rap.
I want to play my flute.
I want to play a flute. Like, I don't, like, you niggas go ahead. Like, I don't want
That's
to,
not the
man.
space I'm in right now.
Yeah, my message is different now. The way I want to portray my message is different. So I went from, you know, the competition to now I'll do poetry when I'm called to do it, literally.
Okay,
now
Lauryn
it's
Hill,
like,
you can stop playing.
yeah, bro, because now it's like, if you need me in that room, I'm going to be there. Now it's like, if you really want to hear my poetry and you feel like people need to hear it, now you're giving me the purpose, because it's hard to really create my own purpose sometimes. Maybe I used to be better at it than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But when people actually see purpose in me, now it's easier for me to do my poems, because now I'm like, I'm doing it for this. This is why I'm doing it.
Yeah, you have a different thing attached. It's interesting. Something you made me think about. You ever see Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah.
You remember when Zuko couldn't do his fire bending anymore?
Yeah.
And he had to figure out, he was like, I've always done my fire bending from a place of rage, and I did it from a place of anger. And he had to find like a different reason to be able to do his bending again. And so to me, I'm like hearing you talk, and I'm just like, oh, you're in a space where you have to find like a different reason to like do what you do. And maybe right now it's just like, well, what's my purpose for coming in here? But in reality, maybe it is getting to understand like who you are now to figure out like, all right, what is the reason that I continue to write?
Exactly, man. We actually wrapped that up really well. The Avatar example was perfect.
See, right here cooking.
Yeah, man. Zuko, me and Zuko be on the same frequency, man. Now I gotta find a different why to do my poetry. Like, I could do it, and I always tell people, man, it's hard to get back in that space when you wrote it originally, man. Like when you wrote a piece, you were in when I write pieces, I'm in that mode. I'm like, yo, it's fresh on my mind, it's fresh on my heart. So that's why it's really a performance art, because when you get up there, you have to perform that shit like it's the first time you performed it, and you just wrote it, and you just went through the shit that you're writing about. I don't always want to do that, man,
because it takes you back to a space. It's funny. I relate to that a lot, because it's like hard to go back. And so like when I was doing, it was 2018. I was doing top dog, underdog, and for me, I had to get into a space of being this character Lincoln, but that character required me to have, by the end of the show, to get shot at the end of the episode by my brother on stage, right? And so like to have to take yourself to a dark space of like, oh, I have to get into space of like, what does it mean to be abandoned by parents, to have to be the person that your brother is depending on, to know by the end of this show your brother is ultimately going to end up killing you, and like having to shake that off by the end. You got to find a way to like release that from your body, because entering that space over and over again, that's why I have such like respect for like actors and performers, because you're just like, you have to enter actors a space
on a different level
and know how to get out of it. So like for spoken word, for poetry, for artists to perform that for public again to consume, like I don't think vulnerability is always should be accessible to the public, because the public don't give a shit about you. They don't know who you are, right? Even no matter how vulnerable you are.
And that's where booking fees come in.
Okay, stop playing with them.
I mean, charge them.
Yeah, charge them for this.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's like a piece I always think around of like the tension of the artist and the consumer, and like what does it mean to like craft around that, because this came from a space of rebellion for you. It's no longer necessarily a space of rebellion. Your purpose is changing. And do you think you've entered a space where you found your purpose for writing now? Or are you still figuring it out?
Yeah. I don't know. Nowadays, I kind of just do it for fun. Nowadays, I do it because it makes me happy, and that's it, and that's all. And when people find out I'm a poet, they go, all right. Especially women, they'll be like, hey, can you do a poem for me? Can you write a poem about me? I'm like, no, I can't.
It's not like that.
And I won't. I will not.
No, I will not sing for you.
Absolutely not. Nah. I mean, what's your price? how much we talking? We can, all right. Let's talk about
fuck
it.
A $200 date.
Yeah,
how much you think my poem is worth?
How bad you want this poem?
Right.
But that's really how it be, though. You know what I'm saying? So nowadays, it's like, if it's not for fun, if it's not when I want to do it, I don't want to do it unless you're paying me, and that's where I'm at with it. I'm either gonna do it on my own time, or I'm gonna do it on your time for a price, and that's how I think every artist should move. You do shit on your own time, or do it on their time for a price. Name your shit.
That ain't nothing but a word.
That's it. Don't. No more free work. No more exploiting yourself. No more none of that. Cause this shit coming from the heart, man. This shit not only coming from the heart, but you gotta put yourself back through that pain for their pleasure. Yeah. Tax. Yeah.
No, I think about that now.
Yeah.
Like they are.
I need compensation.
Yeah.
But outside of that, man, if you just happy doing it, do it. Do it. If it make you happy, every time it make you happy, do it. Period. Don't wait. Do it now. You feel me? And that's how I'm moving with my art, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Happiness over everything.
Facts.
Yeah.
Just like thank you for sharing that. Like I think you are an impeccable storyteller, but you're honest. And like I'm excited for people to hear this episode, because there are so many people out here who are in this creative space, in the performance space, who are artists. And it does feel tiring at sometimes to be able to do this, because now we're asked to produce every single week, produce quality work, produce. But there is like a space where you have to leave room for you to appreciate it. Like I still podcast after 7 years. And it feels like just now there are people who are just like, all right, now I'm buying into what Marquise is doing later. And I'm starting to see some more fruits of my labor, right? Yeah. But there are moments in time where I'm just like, y'all niggas do not see the process. Y'all don't see the 2 hours of editing it takes, and then 2 more hours of uploading, and then thinking around the social media copy, thinking around editing down these smaller clips.
Oh shit, I forgot to press record.
Dog. It was like, oh well, these levels, like the episode I had last week, it was me and 3 other people, and one of the mics went out. And like I didn't keep headphones on. I didn't even realize it happened. But now I'm like on the back end having to like adjust this stuff, and I'm also just like, the content is good, but I have to sacrifice some of the audio that comes with it. And like that point, I'm at a point where I'm just like, all right, I got you now with this 4K ass video. Yeah, okay, man, stop playing with him. Okay.
Yo, can we get a Sony? Can we get a Sony spot? Some type of. Come on.
That'd be really nice.
We try. You know what I mean?
We are trying. Yeah. Okay, we can take this on the road. Stop playing with us.
The content will be phenomenal.
We will not disappoint. Okay. Yeah. But I think a lot of that time, as we were talking, was definitely thinking around how am I going to manage my energy and make sure I still keep part of this creative thing that I love for me while still giving to other people, because it is hard to keep something for yourself and then when it's given away for the public, it's no longer yours. Yeah, to an extent. Like, you have to share that thing with somebody else. So thank you for sharing that story. Thank you for just telling me around like when you first started to who you are now and like the process of it all. And there's no clear line, right? So I look forward to y'all being able to hear that on the other end. But now that we're done here, we can loosen up a little bit. This is the last part of the episode, and we normally do this at the top of the show, but niggas got straight into the conversation. Welcome to the Keepin' It a Bean section. This is your hot take on anything pop culture, on your mind, whatever you want to talk about that is on your spirit, that you just want to be honest and have a hot take about. It don't got to be perfect, politically correct, no nothing. What are you keeping it a bean about today?
Man, I've been wanting to get this off my chest for 2 years, man.
Not 2
Listen,
years. Hold on.
I've been afraid to say it because the powers that be, you know, shout out to the Illuminati. You feel me? Hey, man, you feel me? Real quick, man. Recently, I matured, right? And I'm starting to consume media differently, man. And lately, I've been realizing the difference between Big Sean and Tyga really ain't like crazy. it ain't the difference between the skill set of Big Sean and of Tyga. It's not that big of a gap.
You're about to make me have to go revisit.
Maturing is realizing that Big Sean is no better than Tyga. That's maturing. Let me explain.
Please do, because I'm sitting there like, when did you graduate?
High school or college? High school?
High school.
2012.
Okay, I was 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, say more. Because in my mind, I'm like...
That's a good... Listen.
No, because Tyga was not the person for me. But like for me, Big Sean was like...
That was
our underrated rapper. We were like, nah, Big Sean is putting out bars. He's putting out consistency.
But you bring out a good point. What grade was that? You were in high school.
In high school. So if your 2012 was my 2012, I would have been a sophomore in high school.
So we were both in high school.
Yeah.
Right? When Big Sean was one of the best lyricists you've ever heard in your life.
Yeah.
Now, let me put him in the frame of J. Cole, Drake,
the big
Kendrick.
Three.
Well, at that point, it was the big five. It was Wale, Big Sean,
Kendrick,
Cole, Drake. Yeah. Now, let's really analyze the skill sets, right? In high school, these niggas were the best rappers you had ever heard in your fucking life. Today, you realize that Big Sean is still rapping for high schoolers. J. Cole, Drake, and even Wale have all somehow, some way matured their craft and become better at what they're doing. They're rapping for niggas they age, niggas in their 20s. Big Sean is still rapping for 16 and 17-year-olds. And this is not... Let me take it back. All right, not take it back.
Okay.
I don't want to take the comment back.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back a little bit and kind of really put it into context, man. When you listen to Big Sean nowadays, what's a standout bar that you remember?
Tippy tongue, tippy there.
Tippy
You
tongue,
might go get some dick today.
What are we doing? What are we doing? What is that? What is that? What is that?
Dog, you ain't never lied.
That was hard when I was 16. I was like, oh, shit.
This is when you got to read them out loud. You ever watch Genius and you see them just say their lyrics out loud? Bro.
But he's still rapping like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was never... That shit was... Look, at 16, that shit was fire. But when you put that shit in the lens, when you look at Cole's work when we were 16 versus Big Sean's work when we were 16, and you analyze Cole's shit, you can still play Cole's shit right the fuck now.
In fact, I literally just went back to Born Center probably the other day.
You can play his shit now and still be like, you picking apart bars. You like, oh, that's mature. That's a mature mindset for a nigga. What was he, 22?
Probably.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, when you go back and you listen to Tippy Towel, Tippy, it ain't nothing to dissect. It ain't nothing there, bro. That shit was, there's nothing there. Niggas like Cole, Dre. I was just listening to Comeback Season by Drake. That shit is to this day. That's some lyrically advanced shit. He was talking about some shit. You would have thought he was a 40-year-old man who been through some shit.
Wow.
When you listen to Big Sean, what project did he have when Comeback Season was out? He had
I don't remember.
It was before Finally Famous. He had a mixtape out. Justin Bieber was on it.
Oh yeah, because he was trying to get into his like little pop rapper phase.
He had just got signed.
Yeah.
So,
oh, okay.
When you listen to the shit he was making compared to Drake, it ain't even, it's no competition, bro. Wow. Yeah, so shout out to Big Sean, shout out to Tyga. Because Tyga actually...
The forgotten member of Young Money.
Tyga actually got better. Right now, today, Tyga is better than Big Sean. Right now, today, January 29th, 2024, Tyga is a better rapper than Big Sean. I'm saying it to the camera, putting his stamp. I mean, Illuminati, I'm sorry, but you know... I don't even think Big Sean in the Illuminati no more. That's how. Yo, I'm just saying. Look. I hope this don't go viral.
This was the clip. What are you talking about?
Nah, this might.
I'm drawing the people in with this one.
Man, shout out to Janae, man. No hate, man. It's just all. I'm just a fan, bro.
Thank you for giving us.
Hip-hop. I'm a fan of hip-hop. I'm just analyzing. I still fuck with your music, nigga.
I mean, look, he gave us 2088.
I fuck with the Hit Boy project. It is what it is. I love, 2088.
That's a classic
I love
project.
That joint.
Yeah. So maybe give us one more.
That was his, that was his most artistically advanced project. And it's mainly because he wasn't the only nigga on it. It was very heavily Janae influenced. Shout out to Janae. Y'all need to do a 2089 or some shit, man.
Yeah, facts. We need it ASAP, surely.
Yeah, man.
Facts. I appreciate that. You said 20 years. Oh, man. And for me, I'm just in my politicking phase right now. And so if I'm going to keep it a bean, Tim Scott got to go. Oh, shit. You ever see a black conservative, and you ever notice their haircut?
I did.
And it's the nigga is bald, and I still see that trash-ass haircut. I don't understand.
They be bald with a hairline.
And it don't make sense.
It's weird.
It's tragic. And so that nigga was talking around like, we need Trump and we need this. And I said, you coon-ass nigga. You sitting here with your fake-ass Obama / Martin Luther King cadence that you're trying to emulate.
Which is ironic.
And then had the nerve to quote Fannie Lou Hamer.
Was Martin Luther King a Democrat or Republican?
No, that nigga was a Democrat.
He was?
Yeah. All right. Is this before, Democrats and Republicans did the shit?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't know.
We're going to say, in today's terms, he was a Democrat.
Right, cool.
Yeah, right? Yeah. We're out here. Yeah. But yeah, no. So I was irked because he said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I said, you have some nerve to quote Fannie Lou Hamer at a Trump rally with all these white people who don't know shit about fuck. And I was irritated. And so please take your raccoon ass back to whatever dungeon you crawled out of. Know that you will not be his vice president that you think you're going to get for some fucking power. And it's never going to happen. You look dumb. You look dusty. And you a raggedy ass nigga who just needs to stay in that hole.
And your girl ugly, man.
You got another weird-faced white woman who don't need to ever talk.
Not even just for a human being. Never mind, man. I'm saying too much at this point, bro. Shout out to your wife, man. I don't know.
So many skews. So many skews.
So many skews, man.
He said, why are you doing this to me?
She's likable.
She's
a likable. No,
she's likable.
Not
not even that. Your man ain't likable. You ain't likable. Man, neither are your politics. So,
white wife is
crazy.
That's crazy, bro.
Anyways, that's the episode of Keeping It a Bean.
No disrespect to Jamie. All right, let me stop.
Oh, shit.
Name Jamie. I'm doing too much. I'm doing. Cut that out. Cut that out.
No, it's too bad. It's staying right there. It's Keeping It a Bean. It's his most authentic self.
No. Oh, shit.
Damn. You love his white women. All right. I do. That he has my favorite R&B album of all time is Unpredictable.
I'm gonna listen to that joint on the way home.
Oh my gosh. He got Heaven, Wish You Were Here. Like that last half of the album is crazy. But it's also Storm, The Forecast. It's my shit. I love it. It's so good. I'm gonna make it do what it do, baby. All right, I'm done. All right, anyway, so thank you for coming on for another episode of Keeping It a Bean. Before we head out, Julian, aka the Pastor Jewel, please let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, you can find me on Instagram. Don't go on my Twitter. Go on my Instagram, the Pastor Jewel. Jewel is spelled Jul. You can look at my music and my poetry on YouTube at the Pastor Jewel as well. Also, if you just want the short form content, go to Instagram. You can get the highlights of all my poetry. So yeah, and yeah. Hope y'all like what y'all see.
That's a fact. This is such a great conversation. Once again, thank you for being the man behind the camera, making us look good, making me look good, this, that, and the third. So thank you. Make sure to follow him. I put him all in the description box below on YouTube and in the podcast space as well. This is your boy Marquise Davon, This American Negro. Don't ever call me Mark. You already know what it is. I will see y'all next week. Peace.